I remember it so clearly, the story of one day when we were at home and our daughter had a little accident and a little scratch on her leg, and she came running, screaming, shouting in anguish and pain because she got hurt. And on close investigation, I saw the scratch on her leg, and it was literally just a very light scratch over the top part of the skin, nothing deep. But to her, the experience was incredibly emotional, and she became a little bit irrational, and to the rest of the day, we had to work to just win her back to a more sane self. I'm sharing this story to maybe make us think a little bit about our own selves, because sometimes we go through life and we get a little scratch, maybe a big one, but how we react in that moment is something to consider. Our hearts are fleeting. It creates emotion, and emotion is good. It's something that God has given us, but emotion can't be the most important thing by which we live our lives. And I want to take us to Psalm 73, which we started the series in at the beginning on that very first Sunday. But I want to take us back there and just show you how an individual shared his story of battling with his own heart and his own emotion, but he anchored it in between two truths. He started with truth, then he speaks about the emotion in the middle of suffering and pain, and he ends in truth. And the way I want to explain it to you is maybe our head and our hearts. Our heads need to sometimes just stop and think about the truth that God has revealed to us about himself already. Our heads need to sometimes just be engaged in reading the word and reminding ourselves and our thinking on what God has said, and not let our hearts get in the way. So let's see what Asaph did and how he writes in Psalm 73. He says, and he starts the psalm by saying, truly, God is good. That's how he opens the psalm, because he knew and he had an understanding that God is good. God has been showing himself faithful to Israel. God has been good in the ways that he has walked with Israel, and he starts his psalm with the truth. And then for the rest of the psalm, and most of it, he battles with his heart. His emotions are getting the better of him, and he says that his steps have nearly slipped. He lost his footing. He kind of got in a bad way. And then he kind of challenges life and perhaps maybe God, where he said, is it in vain, Lord, that I lived a clean life? Is it in vain, Lord, that I stayed innocent? Because I wake up every morning in pain. I wake up every morning feeling rebuked and stricken. These are some big things that he says. And he said his heart battles with the emotion of the pain that he's feeling. But we need to be reminded that he started with the truth that God is good in the psalm. And then carrying on, we see he then later has a realization of the emotion of his heart when he says, my soul was embittered when I was pricked in my heart. I was brutish and ignorant. I was like a beast towards you. This is interesting words that he used. I think he used the word beast because an animal just reacts in one specific way. When it has a feeling of fear, it might attack when it's an animal that attacks, or it might just run away. And he said, I was like an animal towards you when I let my emotions of my heart run amok and get the better of me and made me challenge even you, Lord, in my thinking. And then what I love about this psalm is he doesn't just end his story there. He doesn't just say life is difficult, that I'm suffering, and he has an emotional pity party. He then moves back to truth. He goes back to the understanding part and what he knows about the truth of God. And he ends his psalm speaking again about the faithfulness of God. And then he makes a decision to land in truth. He says, I have made the Lord my God my refuge, so that I may tell of all your works. And I don't know where you are in your journey of standing ground, but I believe that you listening to this today have got the truth of who God is. And you need to maybe just remind yourself then. Maybe you have been doing that, but your heart is really in the middle, got the better of you, and it feels like you are losing your footing. But can we go back to truth and end it there, just like Asaph did? He said, in the end, Lord, making you my refuge, because you are good, is sufficient. And that is what's going to keep me in the game and will keep me telling about all of your good works. So let's allow our minds and our heads to be engaged in times where our hearts feels like it's just not possible.